It's Ann-Marie here from Traction Complete. Today we're going to do a very cool use case using Complete Discover, which is to pull in information from publicly available sources using AI to help calculate CAGR or CAGR or compound annual growth rate, however you like to refer to it. The challenge here, and why I love using Complete Discover, because you get to iterate and figure out what works and what prompts make the numbers the most accurate. And that is when you're dealing with public companies, it's easy. They have to report their revenue numbers. So AI can easily crawl a 10K as an example and get accurate numbers. Where it gets a little bit gray is when you want to find information out about private companies who don't usually report their actual revenue numbers. And if they are talking revenue, you'll find they are often talking about projections or run rates, something like ARR, which can confuse AI. So the beauty of being able to give AI context through the cells that have info and the column headers, and then guardrails and formatting rules and scoring rules through your prompt, is that you can tell it what to use, what not to use, and try and help to restrain AI's overexuberance a little bit so that we can lean into accuracy. And so one of the ways we do that as well is we want to give it a confidence score as well as the source so that we can sort of have a check on AI and make sure it's not getting a little bit out of control here. So let's run it and see what happens. Now I have picked Gemini for this, so that's Google's LLM. And I prefer pretty much OpenAI or Google as my two go-to LLMs. And the other ones I use for different purposes, but for accuracy and web search, I like those two models or those two LLMs. Okay, let's take a look. So I think it did pretty good. So let's just give us some space here. So we got the currency. If there was a revenue number, they could give us a currency number. If there's no revenue number that falls within our guardrails, then it's going to say not applicable. And so if it has all the information, it can accurately calculate CAGR and give us a source and give us a link and give us a confidence score. So Microsoft, that's not a shocker. That information is very achievable because they're a public company. And so it's a very accurate number, and the confidence reflects that and the source reflects that. So where it gets tricky is when you have a private company and there is really no good verifiable information to accurately calculate this. Now, if we just wanted to get a general sense of revenue numbers, sure, we could take those guardrails off and we'd start to get some numbers in here. But I want to be really accurate and only calculate this when I have accurate numbers, when I have those actual revenue numbers. Okay, so the guardrails worked, the accuracy's there, and for the most part, when we did have enough numbers to calculate, we had a very high confidence score. So that makes me feel a lot more confident in this information. And I actually feel equally confident when we have an NA because I know I'm not putting in incorrect information. So here's where it gets kind of interesting. So Databricks, they did not report actual revenue numbers except for 2024. And we grabbed that, but since we need 3 years to calculate 3-year CAGR or CAGR, it's still not applicable, but at least we brought in some of that information. And if you follow along the logic here, it gives you the source. So it was from the company itself. They had a press release that indicated that revenue amount. And then you get some notes. I asked it basically for some reasoning, and it actually said reached over 1.6 billion in revenue for the fiscal year ending January 31st, 2024, and that the previous year's revenue figures were not available. So they didn't release them the other years, so we can't make that calculation. So instead of just making up a number, AI was smart enough to follow our rules and put NA. And it just shows you what's possible in terms of containing AI and directing it to get really valuable information that would otherwise take you forever as a person to manually go out and try and research. So very cool. And just to give you a little look at the prompt. So it's kind of long, but not crazy long, just giving some information about how to calculate it and putting in those guardrails to make sure it doesn't hallucinate and bring me some nonsense. Anyways, Complete Discover. Stay tuned for more use cases.